The screams had stopped 3 days ago, and that terrified Eleanor Kane more than the screaming ever had. She sat in the darkness of the cellar, her back pressed against the cold stone wall, counting her breaths to keep from losing her mind entirely. The air smelled of damp earth and mildew and something else she could not quite name, something that spoke of decay and hopelessness. Above her head, she could hear her stepfather's boots crossing the kitchen floor, back and forth, like a predator pacing in its cage. Except she was the one in the cage, and he held the only key. Eleanor was 22 years old, and she had been in this cellar for 6 days. She knew it was 6 days because she had been carefully marking the passage of time by the thin sliver of light that came through the gap beneath the door. 6 sunrises, 6 sunsets, 6 eternities of wondering if anyone would ever find her, if anyone even knew to look. Her mother had died 2 years ago, leaving Eleanor alone with Marcus Brennan, the man her mother had married when Eleanor was 16. At first, he had seemed kind enough, a prosperous rancher who provided well for them. But after her mother's death, something dark had emerged in him, something possessive and cruel. He had begun to watch Eleanor with eyes that made her skin crawl, making comments about how she looked like her mother, how she belonged to him now, how she would never leave his ranch. When she had tried to run away a week ago, packing a small bag in the dead of night and creeping toward the barn to saddle a horse, he had caught her. The beating had been bad, but not as bad as what came after. He had dragged her down to this cellar, thrown her inside, and locked the door with a heavy iron padlock. "You will learn obedience," he had said through the door that first night. "You will learn that you belong here, that you belong to me. When you are ready to submit, I will let you out." She had screamed herself hoarse the first 2 days, begging, pleading, demanding to be released. No one came. The ranch was isolated, miles from the nearest neighbor, and Marcus employed only a handful of ranch hands who stayed in the bunkhouse far from the main house. Even if they heard her, they would not cross Marcus Brennan. He paid well, and jobs were hard to come by in Alamosa, Colorado in the spring of 1884. On the 3rd day, she had conserved her energy, rationing the small amount of water and stale bread he pushed through a gap in the door once a day. On the 4th day, she had begun to plan. On the 5th day, she had explored every inch of her prison by touch, searching for any weakness in the walls, the door, anything that might offer escape. There was nothing. The cellar had been built solid, designed to keep things in or out, and it performed its function with grim efficiency. Now, on the 6th day, Eleanor heard something different: horse hooves. Multiple horses coming up the long drive toward the ranch house. She pressed her ear against the door, hardly daring to breathe. Voices, male voices, talking to Marcus. She could not make out the words, but the tone was businesslike, not social. "Help!" she screamed suddenly, pounding her fists against the door. "Help me, I am down here. Please help me." The voices stopped. For a moment there was complete silence, and Eleanor's heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Then she heard Marcus's voice, loud and hearty, obviously trying to cover her cries. "That is just the wind," he said. "These old houses make all kinds of noise. Now about those cattle you wanted to purchase, that did not sound like wind," another voice interrupted. It was a deep voice, steady and calm, with an edge of steel beneath the courtesy. "That sounded like a woman calling for help." "Nonsense," Marcus said, and Eleanor could hear the strain in his voice now. "I live alone here. There is no woman." "Then you will not mind if we look around," the stranger said. It was not a question. "I absolutely do mind," Marcus said, his voice rising. "This is private property, and I am asking you to leave." "Help!" Eleanor screamed again, throwing her whole body against the door. The heavy wood barely shuddered, but she did not care. Someone was there, someone who might help. I am locked in the cellar. Please, he has been holding me prisoner. Please help me. There was a sudden commotion above, the sound of boots running, Marcus shouting, and then a heavy thud that shook dust from the ceiling beams above Eleanor's head. She heard a door slam, more shouting, and then footsteps coming closer, descending the wooden stairs that led to the cellar from the kitchen. "Where is the key?" the deep voice demanded. "There is no key. There is no one down there. You are trespassing." Marcus's words cut off with a grunt of pain. "I am going to ask you one more time," the deep voice said, and now there was no courtesy left in it at all, only cold fury. "Where is the key to this door?" "Go to hell," Marcus spat. Eleanor heard the footsteps move away from the door, then come back. "Miss, if you are in there, you need to stand back from the door," the deep voice called. "As far back as you can get. I am going to break it down." Eleanor scrambled backward, pressing herself into the far corner of the cellar. "I am clear," she called. The first impact against the door made the whole frame shudder. The second splintered the wood around the lock. The third sent the door crashing inward, torn completely off its hinges, and daylight flooded into the cellar, so bright after 6 days of darkness that Eleanor had to shield her eyes. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, tall and broad-shouldered, backlit by the sun. As Eleanor's eyes adjusted, she saw a man, perhaps 26 or 27 years old, with dark hair and eyes that looked nearly black in the shadows. He wore the practical clothes of a working cowboy, denim and worn leather, and there was a gun belt strapped around his hips. But it was his face that caught her attention, the strong lines of it, the expression of barely controlled rage mixed with concern as he looked at her huddled in the corner. "Miss," he said, and his voice was gentle now, all the steel put away. "Are you hurt? Can you walk?" Eleanor tried to stand, but her legs, weak from days of inactivity, buckled beneath her. In an instant, the cowboy was across the cellar, catching her before she hit the ground. His arms were strong and steady, and for the first time in 6 days, Eleanor felt something other than terror. She felt safe. "I have you," he said quietly. "You are safe now. I promise you, you are safe." He lifted her easily, carrying her up the stairs and out of the darkness. Eleanor blinked in the bright afternoon sunlight, breathing in fresh air that tasted like freedom. In the kitchen, she saw Marcus on the floor, held down by 2 other cowboys, his face purple with rage. When he saw Eleanor in the stranger's arms, he began to struggle violently. "She is mine," he shouted. "She is my stepdaughter. This is a family matter. You have no right. You locked a woman in a cellar," the cowboy holding Eleanor said flatly. "That stopped being a family matter and became a crime about 6 days ago, I would guess." He carried Eleanor outside to the porch, setting her gently in a rocking chair. Another cowboy brought her water, and she drank it slowly, feeling it soothe her parched throat. There were 5 cowboys in total, she realized, all watching her with varying expressions of concern and anger. The one who had broken down the door crouched in front of her, his dark eyes searching her face. "My name is Jameson," he said. "We are from the Running J Ranch, about 15 miles north of here. We came to talk to Brennan about buying some of his cattle." "We had no idea," he stopped, his jaw clenching. "How long were you down there?" 6 days, Eleanor whispered. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, hoarse and fragile. "He caught me trying to run away. My mother died 2 years ago, and she could not finish the sentence, could not put into words the fear and revulsion Marcus had inspired in her. Cole's expression darkened. "You do not have to explain," he said quietly. "We heard enough. Is there anyone we can take you to? Family, friends?" Eleanor shook her head. "My mother was all I had. There is no one." "There is someone now," Cole said firmly. He stood, turning to his men. "Tom, ride into a limosa and fetch the sheriff. Tell him we have Marcus Brennan for unlawful imprisonment at the very least. Jack, you and Samuel stay here and make sure Brennan does not go anywhere. Wesley, you are with me. We are taking Miss," he paused, looking back at Eleanor. "Kane," she supplied. "Eleanor Kane. We are taking Miss Kane somewhere safe," Cole finished. "And then we are going to make sure Marcus Brennan faces justice for what he has done." The next hour passed in a blur. Eleanor sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket one of the cowboys had found, while Cole went into the house and returned with a small trunk of her belongings. She had not asked him to do it, had not even thought of it, but he had known she would need her things. The kindness of that gesture made her throat tighten with unshed tears. When the sheriff arrived from Alamosa, a stocky man with a gray mustache and a no-nonsense attitude, Eleanor told her story. She showed him the bruises on her arms where Marcus had grabbed her, the cuts on her hands from trying to claw her way through the cellar door. The sheriff's face grew grimmer with every word. "Marcus Brennan," the sheriff said, walking into the kitchen where Marcus sat, now handcuffed, glaring at everyone with pure hatred. "You are under arrest for unlawful imprisonment, assault, and battery. You will be held in the Alamosa jail until your trial." "This is an outrage," Marcus shouted. "She is my stepdaughter. I have every right to discipline her as I see fit." "You have no rights over an adult woman," the sheriff said coldly. "And even if you did, what you have done here crosses every line of decency and law. You are going to jail, Brennan, and if I have my way, you will stay there for a very long time." As the sheriff led Marcus away in shackles, the man turned his head to look at Eleanor one last time. The malice in his eyes made her shudder, and she looked away, unable to meet that gaze. Cole noticed. He stepped between Eleanor and the departing men, blocking her view. "He cannot hurt you any more," he said quietly. "I give you my word on that." Eleanor looked up at him, this stranger who had saved her life, who had broken down a door and pulled her from darkness into light. "Thank you," she whispered. "I do not know how to thank you enough." "You do not have to thank me," Cole said. "What he did was wrong. Any decent man would have done the same." But Eleanor suspected that was not true. She suspected that many men would have looked the other way, would have decided it was not their business, would have let her rot in that cellar rather than involve themselves. Cole Jameson was not like those men. "Where will you go?" Cole asked. "Do you have anywhere?" Eleanor shook her head. The ranch legally belonged to Marcus, or would until the courts sorted everything out. She had a small amount of money her mother had left her, hidden in the trunk Cole had retrieved, but it was not much. Certainly not enough to start a new life somewhere. Cole was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he said, "The Running Jay is owned by my brother and me. We run cattle, about 200 head right now, and we are looking to expand. We have a housekeeper, Mrs. Davies, who is 60 if she is a day, and she is always saying she needs help with the cooking and cleaning. The house is big enough that we have spare rooms. If you wanted, you could come work for us. It would not be charity," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "You would earn your keep, and Mrs. Davies really does need the help. My brother and I are hopeless when it comes to domestic matters." Eleanor hesitated. She knew nothing about this man except that he had saved her. But what choice did she have? She had nowhere to go, no family, no prospects. And something in Cole's eyes made her trust him, made her believe that he meant what he said, that this was an offer made in good faith. "I accept," she said quietly, "and thank you, again." Cole smiled, the first real smile she had seen from him, and it transformed his face from merely handsome to something that made her heart skip a beat. "You are welcome," he said. "Now let us get you out of here. You have seen enough of this place to last a lifetime." The ride to the Running Jay Ranch took about 2 hours. Eleanor rode beside Cole on a gentle mare he had borrowed from Marcus's stable with Wesley, one of the other cowboys, riding on her other side. She was weak and shaky, but the fresh air and sunlight worked on her like medicine, reviving her spirits with every mile they put between her and that terrible cellar. Cole did not press her to talk, but he rode close enough that she knew he was watching over her, ready to catch her if she started to slip from the saddle. Once, when they forded a small creek and her horse stumbled slightly on the rocky bottom, his hand shot out to steady her, strong and sure. Eleanor found herself acutely aware of him, of his presence beside her, in a way that was entirely new to her. She had never had a beau, never been courted. Marcus had made sure of that, driving away any young man who showed interest in her with dark looks and threats. Eleanor had resigned herself to spinsterhood, had been planning her escape not toward any particular future but simply away from Marcus. Now, riding beside Cole Jameson in the golden afternoon light, she felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest. Hope, perhaps, or something even more dangerous. The Running Jay Ranch appeared in the distance as they crested a small rise, and Eleanor caught her breath. It was beautiful, a sprawling ranch house built of timber and stone, with a wide porch that wrapped around three sides. Outbuildings dotted the landscape, barns and stables and corrals, all well-maintained and orderly. Beyond the buildings, she could see the grazing land stretching toward the mountains, dotted with cattle. "Home," Cole said simply, and there was pride in his voice. As they rode into the yard, a woman emerged from the house, wiping her hands on her apron. She was, as Cole had said, about 60 years old, with gray hair pulled back in a bun and a face that spoke of kindness and hard work in equal measure. "Cole Jameson," she called. "You have been gone all day, and I was about to send out a search party. And who is this you have brought with you?" Cole dismounted and came around to help Eleanor down from her horse. Her legs were more steady now, but she was grateful for his supporting arm nonetheless. "Mrs. Davies, this is Miss Eleanor Kane. She is going to be helping you around the house if you are agreeable. Eleanor, this is Mrs. Constance Davies, who has been keeping my brother and me fed and civilized for the past 3 years." Mrs. Davies looked at Eleanor, and her eyes, sharp and assessing, took in the bruises, the exhaustion, the haunted look that Eleanor knew must be written all over her face. To Eleanor's surprise, the older woman did not ask questions. Instead, she simply opened her arms. "You poor dear," she said. "Come inside. You look like you need a hot meal and a proper bed." Eleanor found herself enfolded in a hug that smelled of bread and lavender, and the tears she had been holding back finally spilled over. Mrs. Davies made soothing noises, patting her back, and led her gently toward the house. Cole watched them go, and when Eleanor looked back at him from the porch, he gave her a small nod as if to say, "You are safe here." She believed him. The interior of the ranch house was as welcoming as the exterior. The main room was large and comfortable, with well-worn furniture and rugs that spoke of a home that was lived in and loved. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and the late afternoon sun streamed through windows that looked out over the grazing land. Mrs. Davies led Eleanor upstairs to a bedroom that was simply furnished but clean and bright. "This will be yours," she said. "There is a washstand there, and I will bring you hot water for a bath. You take your time, dear. Supper will not be for a few hours yet." After the older woman left, Eleanor stood in the middle of the room, almost unable to believe that she was here, that she was free. She walked to the window and looked out over the ranch, watching as Cole and Wesley led the horses to the barn. As if he felt her gaze, Cole looked up, and even from this distance she could see the concern in his expression. She raised a hand in a small wave, and he smiled, tipping his hat to her before disappearing into the barn. That night, Eleanor had her first proper bath in a week, washing away the grime and fear of the cellar. Mrs. Davies had provided her with a simple but clean dress, and when Eleanor came downstairs for supper, she felt almost human again. The dining room table was set for 4, and Mrs. Davies was bustling about, setting out platters of food. Cole was there, cleaned up from his ride, and with him was another man who could only be his brother. The family resemblance was strong, though this man was perhaps a year or two younger, with lighter hair and blue eyes instead of Cole's dark ones. "Eleanor," Cole said, rising as she entered. "This is my brother Caleb. Caleb, this is Miss Eleanor Kane." Caleb stood as well, giving her a polite nod. "Miss Kane, my brother told me what happened. I am glad he and the boys found you when they did." "As am I," Eleanor said quietly, "more glad than I can possibly express. The meal was delicious, the best food Eleanor had tasted in months. Marcus had been a terrible cook, and after her mother died, the quality of meals at the Brennan Ranch had deteriorated significantly. Mrs. Davies, on the other hand, was a culinary artist, and the roast beef and potatoes and vegetables were perfectly prepared. Conversation at the table was light, deliberately so, Eleanor suspected. Caleb talked about the ranch, about their plans to expand the herd, about the new horses he was thinking of purchasing. Cole added comments here and there, but mostly he watched Eleanor, as if making sure she was really all right. After supper, Eleanor insisted on helping Mrs. Davies with the dishes, despite the older woman's protests. "You need to rest," Mrs. Davies said firmly. "I have been resting for 6 days," Eleanor replied. "What I need is to do something useful, something normal." Mrs. Davies studied her for a moment, then nodded. "I understand. Very well, you can dry while I wash." They worked in companionable silence for a while, and then Mrs. Davies said, "Cole is a good man. Both the Jameson boys are. Their parents died 5 years ago. Fever took them both within a week of each other. The boys were young to be running a ranch on their own, but they have done well. They work hard and they are fair to their men. You will be safe here, Miss Kane." "Eleanor, please," Eleanor said. "And I already know I am safe here. I can feel it." Mrs. Davies smiled. "Good. Now I am going to say something, and you can tell me if I am overstepping." Cole has had a look in his eye at supper that I have never seen before. I have known him since he was 21, and I have never seen him look at a woman the way he looks at you. I am not saying anything will come of it, or should come of it. You have been through a terrible ordeal, and the last thing you need is someone pressing you. But I wanted you to know so you were not surprised if he shows an interest." Eleanor felt her cheeks flush. "I only just met him," she said. "I know," Mrs. Davies said. "But sometimes that is all it takes. My husband, God rest his soul, told me he knew he would marry me the first time he saw me, and I laughed at him. But he was right. Sometimes you just know." That night, lying in the comfortable bed in her new room, Eleanor thought about Mrs. Davies's words. She thought about Cole, about the way he had broken down that door without hesitation, about the gentleness in his hands when he lifted her, about the fury in his voice when he confronted Marcus. She thought about how safe she felt when he was near, how his smile had made something warm bloom in her chest. It was too soon, she told herself. She had just escaped a terrible situation. The last thing she should be thinking about was a man, any man, but Cole Jameson was not just any man. He was the man who had saved her life, and perhaps, if she was very lucky, he might be something more. The next few weeks passed in a blur of domestic activity. Eleanor threw herself into work, helping Mrs. Davies with cooking and cleaning, learning the rhythms of the ranch. She proved to have a natural talent for baking, and her bread was soon a favorite among the ranch hands who came up to the main house for meals. Cole and Caleb were often out on the range, working with the cattle or the horses. but they came in for supper every evening. Eleanor found herself looking forward to those meals, to the conversations around the table, to the sound of Cole's laugh when Caleb told a particularly funny story about one of the horses. Slowly, the haunted look faded from Eleanor's eyes. The bruises healed, the cuts scabbed over and disappeared. She began to sleep through the night without nightmares, began to move through the house without flinching at sudden noises. The cellar receded into memory, not forgotten but no longer the only thing she could think about. Cole watched this transformation with quiet satisfaction. He did not press her, did not demand her time or attention, but he was always there, a steady presence. He fixed a loose board on the porch when she mentioned it might be dangerous. He brought her wildflowers from the range, presenting them awkwardly, and saying only that he thought they might brighten up her room. He sat with her on the porch in the evenings, not saying much, just being near. Eleanor found herself drawn to him more and more. She watched him work with the horses, admiring the gentle skill he showed with even the most skittish animals. She listened to him talk about the ranch, hearing the love and pride in his voice. She saw the respect his brother and the ranch hands had for him, the way they looked to him for guidance and leadership. One evening, about a month after she had arrived at the Running Jay, Eleanor was sitting on the porch watching the sunset when Cole came out of the barn and walked toward the house. He had been working with a new colt all afternoon, and there was dust on his clothes and a satisfied smile on his face. "How did it go?" Eleanor called. "Better than I hoped," Cole said, climbing the porch steps. "That colt has good lines, smart too. In a year or two he will be a fine saddle horse." He paused, looking at her. "Mind if I sit?" "Please do," Eleanor said, gesturing to the chair beside her. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sky turn from gold to pink to purple. Then Cole said, "Eleanor, I need to tell you something." Her heart skipped a beat. "All right." "I have been thinking," Cole said slowly, as if choosing his words carefully. "About you, about us. I know you have been through something terrible, and the last thing I want is to make you uncomfortable, but I cannot keep this to myself any longer." He turned to look at her, and in his eyes she saw something that made her breath catch. "I care about you, Eleanor. More than I should, probably, given that we have only known each other a month. But I cannot help it. When I see you, when I am near you, I feel something I have never felt before. I think about you all day when I am out on the range. I look forward to supper every night because it means I will see you." He stopped, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I am not good with words, but what I am trying to say is that I have feelings for you, strong feelings. And I wanted you to know, so that you could tell me if I should stop, if I am making things difficult for you." Eleanor's heart was racing. She looked at this good, kind man, this man who had saved her, who had given her a home and safety and respect, and she knew what her answer was. "You are not making things difficult," she said quietly. "Cole, I have feelings for you too. I have been trying not to, trying to tell myself it was too soon, that I needed more time. But the truth is, I think I started falling for you the moment you broke down that cellar door." Cole's face lit up with a smile so bright it rivaled the sunset. "Truly, truly," Eleanor said, and she found herself smiling too, a real smile, the first one in longer than she could remember. "May I?" Cole hesitated. "May I hold your hand?" In answer, Eleanor reached out and placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and strong and steady, and Eleanor felt something settle in her chest, something that felt like coming home. They sat there on the porch, holding hands and watching the stars come out, and Eleanor thought that perhaps, after all the darkness, she had finally found her light. The courtship that followed was sweet and slow. Cole was patient, never pushing, always respectful. He took Eleanor on walks around the ranch, showing her his favorite places, the meadow where wildflowers bloomed in profusion, the creek where the water ran clear and cold, the high ridge that overlooked the entire valley. They talked for hours, getting to know each other. Eleanor told him about her childhood, about her mother and the happy years before Marcus Brennan had entered their lives. Cole told her about growing up on the ranch, about his parents and how much he missed them, about his dreams for the future. "I want to build something lasting," he said one day as they sat by the creek, their boots off and their feet in the cool water. "Not just a ranch, though that is important, but a legacy, a family. I want children who will grow up here, who will love this land the way I do. I want to grow old with someone I love, watching the seasons change, watching our family grow." He looked at her, his eyes serious. "I want that someone to be you, Eleanor, if you will have me." Eleanor's breath caught. They had been courting for 2 months, but she knew her answer as surely as she knew her own name. "I want that too," she whispered. "I want all of that with you." Cole reached out and cupped her face in his hands, his touch infinitely gentle. "May I kiss you?" he asked. "Yes," Eleanor breathed. The kiss was soft and sweet and perfect, a promise and a beginning all at once. When they pulled apart, Eleanor was smiling, and Cole was looking at her as if she were the most precious thing in the world. "I love you," he said. "I know it is fast, but I cannot deny it anymore." "I love you, Eleanor Kane." "I love you too," Eleanor said, and saying the words felt like magic, like freedom. "I love you, Cole Jameson." They were married in late August of 1884 in a small ceremony in Alamosa. Mrs. Davies stood up with Eleanor, and Caleb stood up with Cole. The sheriff was there, and a few of the ranch hands, and the minister who ran the small church in town. It was simple and perfect, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Eleanor felt joy so pure and intense it brought tears to her eyes. Marcus Brennan was sentenced to 15 years in prison for what he had done. Eleanor did not attend the trial, but Cole did, and he came back looking grim. He showed no remorse, Cole told her. He insisted that he had done nothing wrong, that you were his property to do with as he pleased. The judge did not agree, thank God. He will be an old man by the time he gets out, if he lives that long. Eleanor nodded. She did not like to think about Marcus, did not like the shadow he cast even now. But she took comfort in knowing that he was locked away, that he could not hurt her or anyone else. The ranch that had belonged to Marcus was sold to pay his legal debts and to provide restitution to Eleanor. The money was substantial, and Eleanor and Cole used it to expand the running J, buying more cattle and more land. The ranch prospered under their joint management, Cole handling the outdoor work, and Eleanor managing the finances and the household with a sharp mind for business that impressed even Caleb. Their first year of marriage was blissfully happy. Eleanor bloomed in the safety and love of her new life, her natural warmth and humor emerging now that she was no longer living in fear. Cole was an attentive and loving husband, always making sure she felt cherished and valued. They worked side by side during the day and fell asleep in each other's arms at night, and Eleanor often marveled at how drastically her life had changed. In the spring of 1885, Eleanor discovered she was expecting a child. Cole was overjoyed, though he immediately became absurdly protective, insisting she do no heavy work and hovering over her constantly. Eleanor found his concern endearing, even when it became a bit excessive. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she told him one day when he tried to prevent her from carrying a basket of laundry. "I know," Cole said, taking the basket anyway. "But you are carrying the most precious thing in the world to me, our child. Let me take care of you." How could she argue with that? Their son was born in December of 1885. a healthy, squalling baby boy with his father's dark hair and his mother's blue eyes. They named him Thomas, after Cole's father, and Cole cried when he held his son for the first time, tears of pure joy streaming down his face. "He is perfect," Cole whispered, looking down at the tiny bundle in his arms. "You are perfect. Eleanor, you have made me the happiest man alive." Eleanor, exhausted but elated, smiled up at her husband. "We made him together," she said. "Our son, our family." Caleb was a doting uncle and Mrs. Davies a doting surrogate grandmother. The ranch house was filled with laughter and love, with the sounds of a baby crying and then cooing, with the bustle of a growing family. 2 years later, in 1887, Eleanor gave birth to twin girls, Sarah and Rebecca. Cole was beside himself with pride and joy, carrying the twins around and showing them to anyone who would look. Eleanor watched him with her daughters and fell in love with him all over again, seeing the gentle tenderness he showed these tiny beings. The ranch continued to prosper. They expanded their operations, built a new barn, purchased more horses. Cole and Caleb hired more ranch hands to help with the work, and the Running J became known throughout the territory as one of the best-run ranches in Colorado. In 1890, when Thomas was 5 and the twins were 3, Caleb married a schoolteacher from Alamosa named Anna. The wedding was held at the ranch, a big celebration with music and dancing and enough food to feed half the territory. Eleanor and Cole watched as Caleb and Anna exchanged their vows, and Cole squeezed Eleanor's hand. "That was us 6 years ago," he murmured. "Feels like yesterday and a lifetime ago all at once." "I know," Eleanor whispered back, "but I would not change a single moment of it." Caleb and Anna built their own house on the ranch, not far from the main house, and the two families lived and worked in harmony. Anna became one of Eleanor's closest friends, and when Anna gave birth to her first child, a son named Matthew, in 1891, Eleanor was there to help, offering the wisdom of her own experiences. The years passed in a gentle rhythm of seasons and growth. Thomas grew into a serious, thoughtful boy who loved the ranch and the animals. The twins were wild and adventurous, always getting into mischief and keeping everyone on their toes. In 1893, Eleanor gave birth to another son, James, and in 1896, to another daughter, Catherine. The house was always full of noise and life and love. Cole proved to be a wonderful father, patient and kind but firm when necessary. He taught his sons to ride and rope, to care for the animals and the land. He taught his daughters the same things, to Eleanor's delight, insisting that girls needed to know how to take care of themselves and should not be limited by what society expected of them. "Our daughters will be strong," he told Eleanor, "like their mother." Eleanor's relationship with her children was warm and close. She told them stories at bedtime, taught them to read and write, sang with them and played with them. But she also taught them about hard work and responsibility, about kindness and integrity. Her children adored her, and she adored them in return. As the children grew older, Eleanor sometimes told them, in age-appropriate ways, about her own past. She did not want to frighten them, but she wanted them to understand that bad things could happen, and that it was important to stand up for what was right, to help those who needed it. "Your father saved me," she told Thomas when he was 12, old enough to understand. "I was in a terrible situation and he broke down a door and set me free. That is the kind of man you should aspire to be, someone who helps, who protects, who does what is right even when it is difficult." Thomas had listened, his young face serious, and then hugged his mother tightly. "I will," he promised. "I will be like father." In 1899, when Eleanor was 37 and Cole was 41, they celebrated their 15th wedding anniversary. Their children ranged in age from 14 to 3, a noisy, boisterous brood that filled the house with laughter. Caleb and Anna's family had grown as well, 3 children now, and the Running Jay was a thriving enterprise, known throughout Colorado. On their anniversary, Cole took Eleanor on a picnic to the meadow where they had spent so much time courting. The children stayed with Mrs. Davies and Anna, and for a few hours, it was just the 2 of them, like it had been in the beginning. 15 years, Cole said, lying on the blanket with his head in Eleanor's lap. 15 years since I married the most remarkable woman I have ever known. 15 years since I married my hero, Eleanor said softly, running her fingers through his hair. Cole, do you ever think about that day? The day you found me, sometimes, Cole admitted. I think about how different my life would be if we had not decided to ride out to Brennan's ranch that day, if we had not heard you calling, if I had been a coward and walked away. You could never be a coward, Eleanor said firmly, and I thank God every day that you are the man you are. You saved my life that day, Cole, but you have done so much more than that. You have given me a life worth living, a family, a home, love, safety, joy. Everything I have, everything I am now is because of you. Cole sat up, taking her hands in his. No, he said seriously. Everything you are now is because of you. You survived something terrible and you did not let it break you. You took the second chance you were given and you made something beautiful out of it. You are strong, Eleanor. You always have been. I just gave you the opportunity to show it. Eleanor felt tears prick her eyes. After all these years, Cole still had the power to move her, to make her feel cherished and valued. I love you, she whispered. I will love you until my last breath and beyond. And I love you, Cole said, pulling her close, forever and always. They kissed, and in that moment, Eleanor felt the same thrill she had felt the first time he kissed her by the creek all those years ago. Some things, she thought, never changed. Some love was eternal. The years continued to pass. The children grew, fell in love, married, and had children of their own. Thomas married a rancher's daughter from a neighboring spread and gave Eleanor and Cole their first grandchild in 1905. The twins married in a double wedding in 1907, both to cowboys who worked on the Running Jay. James and Catherine were still young, but Eleanor could see them growing up, becoming adults in their own right. Cole's hair turned gray at the temples, and Eleanor found laugh lines around her eyes, but they were happy lines, earned from years of joy and love. The ranch continued to prosper, a testament to their hard work and dedication. Mrs. Davies passed away peacefully in 1908, at the age of 84. Eleanor mourned her deeply, grateful for the kindness and wisdom the older woman had shown her all those years ago. They buried her on the ranch, in a spot overlooking the valley she had loved. In 1912, Eleanor and Cole celebrated their 28th wedding anniversary. Their house was full that day. 3 generations gathered together, children and grandchildren, Caleb and Anna and their grown family. There was music and laughter, food and fellowship, and at the end of the day, when everyone had gone home or gone to bed, Eleanor and Cole sat on the porch, holding hands and watching the stars. You remember, Eleanor said softly, the first night we sat here together. The night you told me you had feelings for me, I remember, Cole said. I was terrified you would reject me, send me away. I could never have done that, Eleanor said. Even then I knew. You were my future, Cole, my forever. And you are mine, Cole said, lifting her hand to his lips and kissing it gently. My love, my life, my Eleanor. They sat there in the darkness, 2 people who had found each other against all odds, who had built a life and a family and a legacy together. Eleanor thought about the girl she had been, locked in a cellar, terrified and hopeless. She thought about the woman she had become, strong and happy and loved. The journey from one to the other had been long, but every step had been worth it. "Thank you," she whispered to the man beside her. "Thank you for breaking down that door." Cole turned to her, and in the starlight she could see the love in his eyes, as strong now as it had been 28 years ago. "Thank you for being worth saving," he said. "Thank you for choosing me, for building this life with me. You are everything, Eleanor. Everything." And as they kissed, as the stars wheeled overhead and the night wrapped around them like a blanket, Eleanor knew that she was home, that she had been home from the moment Cole Jameson had pulled her from the darkness and into the light of his love. The years marched on, as they always do. In 1918, when Eleanor was 56 and Cole was 60, they celebrated 34 years of marriage. The ranch was now run mostly by their sons and sons-in-law, though Cole still rode out most days, unwilling to give up the work he loved. Eleanor had slowed down a bit, content now to spend her days with her grandchildren, teaching them to bake and read, telling them stories of the old days. Sometimes, when the house was quiet and she had a moment to herself, Eleanor would think about Marcus Brennan. He had died in prison in 1896, and she had felt nothing but relief when she heard the news. The shadow he had cast over her life had faded long ago, replaced by the light of Cole's love and the joy of her family. She thought about what her life would have been if Cole had not come along. Would she still be in that cellar? Would she have died there, alone and forgotten? The thought made her shudder, but it also made her profoundly grateful. She had been given a second chance, and she had made the most of it. In the spring of 1920, Cole was thrown from a horse while working with a particularly ornery stallion. He broke his leg, and though it healed, he was never quite the same afterward. The leg pained him, especially in cold weather, and he finally had to admit that his days of riding the range were over. "I am getting old," he said ruefully to Eleanor one evening, sitting by the fire and rubbing his bad leg. "We both are," Eleanor said, settling into the chair beside him. "But that is all right. We have earned our rest." Cole looked at her, and the love in his eyes had not dimmed one bit despite the years. "I would not trade a single moment," he said. "Not one. Every year with you has been a gift, and every year with you has been my joy," Eleanor said softly. They held hands in the firelight, two old people who had lived a life full of love and meaning, and they were content. On a crisp autumn day in 1925, Eleanor and Cole celebrated their 41st wedding anniversary. Their children and grandchildren gathered at the ranch, and there was a great feast and much laughter. Eleanor looked around the table at her family, at the faces she loved so much, and she felt her heart swell with gratitude. After the meal, Cole stood and raised his glass. "I want to make a toast," he said, his voice still strong despite his 70 years. "To my wife, Eleanor. 41 years ago I found her in the darkest of circumstances, and she became my light. She has been my partner, my love, my best friend. She has given me 5 beautiful children and more grandchildren than I can count. She has made my life a joy from the first day I met her until this very moment." He looked at Eleanor, and there were tears in his eyes. "I love you, Eleanor Jameson. I always have, and I always will." Eleanor rose, her own eyes wet with tears, and went to her husband's side. "And I love you, Cole Jameson. You saved me in every way a person can be saved. You gave me a life, a family, a reason to wake up every morning with joy in my heart. I am the luckiest woman in the world because I get to be yours." They kissed, to the applause and cheers of their family, and Eleanor knew that this, right here, was what happiness looked like. This was what it meant to be truly, deeply loved. The seasons turned and the years continued their inexorable march. In 1928, Cole fell ill with pneumonia. He was 73 years old, and though he fought hard, His body was tired. Eleanor nursed him devotedly, sitting by his bedside day and night, holding his hand and talking to him. "You cannot leave me," she whispered one night when he was particularly weak. "I am not ready. I will never be ready." Cole opened his eyes and looked at her, and she saw so much love in that gaze it took her breath away. "I do not want to leave you," he said, his voice barely more than a whisper. "But if I do, Eleanor, you listen to me. You have been the best thing in my life. You have made every day worth living, and I will wait for you wherever I am going. I will wait for you, and when you come, I will be there to take your hand, just like I did that day in the cellar. I will always come for you. I know," Eleanor sobbed. "I know you will." But Cole was strong and he rallied. He pulled through the pneumonia, though it left him weaker than before. He was confined to the house now, unable to do much more than sit in his favorite chair by the fire, but he was alive, and that was all Eleanor needed. They spent their days together, reading and talking and simply being in each other's presence. Their children visited often, and their grandchildren brought life and noise to the quiet house. Cole loved to have the little ones climb into his lap and tell him about their adventures, and Eleanor loved to watch him with them, seeing the gentle grandfather he had become. In the fall of 1930, on a beautiful October day when the aspen trees were ablaze with gold and the sky was a deep, clear blue, Cole Jameson passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 75 years old, and Eleanor was holding his hand when he went. The grief was overwhelming. Eleanor felt as if part of her soul had been ripped away, leaving a gaping wound that could never heal. For days, she could barely function, moving through the motions of the funeral and the burial like a ghost. Her children were there, supporting her, loving her, but nothing could fill the emptiness left by Cole's absence. They buried him on the ranch next to Mrs. Davies in a spot he had chosen years before. The headstone read, "Cole Jameson, 1855–1930. Beloved husband, father, grandfather." He saved the ones he loved. As the weeks turned to months, Eleanor slowly began to find her footing again. The grief did not go away, but it became bearable, a constant ache rather than a searing pain. She took comfort in her children and grandchildren, in the life she and Cole had built together. The ranch continued to thrive, a living legacy to the man she had loved. Eleanor lived for another 10 years, surrounded by her family, watching her grandchildren grow and have children of their own. She told them stories of their grandfather, of the man who had broken down a door and saved her, of the love they had shared that had lasted a lifetime. On a warm spring day in 1940, Eleanor Kane Jameson passed away peacefully in her sleep. She was 78 years old, and she died with a smile on her face. Her last thoughts were of Cole and of the life they had shared, and of the moment when she would see him again. They buried her next to her husband, and the headstone read, "Eleanor Jameson, 1862–1940. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother." She was loved beyond measure. Their children and grandchildren stood by the grave, mourning but also celebrating, because Eleanor and Cole had lived well and loved deeply, and their legacy lived on in the generations that came after them. And on the Running J Ranch, in the house that Cole and Eleanor had filled with love and laughter, their great-grandchildren played and grew, learning the stories of the couple who had built it all. The story of the cowboy who broke down a door and the woman he set free. The story of a love that had conquered darkness and fear and built something beautiful in its place. The story of Cole and Eleanor Jameson, who had found each other against all odds and had never let go. Their love story became legend in the family, passed down through the generations like a precious heirloom. And every time it was told, it inspired those who heard it to believe in love, to believe in second chances, to believe that even in the darkest moments, there could be light. That even when all seemed lost, someone might break down the door and set you free. And that true love, real love, the kind that Cole and Eleanor had shared, could last not just a lifetime but forever. The Running J Ranch still stands today, run by the descendants of Cole and Eleanor Jameson, a testament to the power of love and the strength of the human spirit. And if you visit on a quiet evening when the sun is setting and the sky is painted gold and purple, you might feel their presence there. Two souls who found each other in the darkness and built a life in the light, still watching over the land they loved and the family they created. Their story is one of courage and redemption, of love that conquers all, of two people who refused to let circumstances define them and instead chose to define themselves. It is a story of the Wild West, of cowboys and ranch life, of hard work and simple joys. But most of all, it is a love story, pure and true, the kind that reminds us all why we believe in happy endings. And they lived happily ever after, Cole and Eleanor, together in life and together beyond it, their love eternal, their legacy everlasting, their story a beacon of hope for all who hear it. In the end, that is what matters most, not the darkness that came before, but the light that came after. Not the door that was locked, but the door that was broken down. Not the fear, but the freedom. Not the despair, but the love that saved Eleanor Kane, the love that fulfilled Cole Jameson, the love that built a family, a ranch, a legend. The love that proved once and for all that even in the darkest cellar, even in the most desperate moment, rescue can come. Love can come. And when it does, it changes everything. This is their story. This is the legacy of Cole and Eleanor Jameson, the cowboy who broke down a door and the woman he set free who became his wife, his partner, his forever love. And in the annals of the Wild West, in the history of Alamosa, Colorado, in the hearts of their descendants, they will never be forgotten. They will live on, eternal together in love, always and forever. The end of their earthly journey, but the beginning of their eternal one, still together, still in love, still the same two souls who found each other in 1884 and never let go. That is the power of true love. That is the legacy of Cole and Eleanor. That is the story that will be told for generations to come, inspiring, uplifting, reminding us all that love conquers all, that second chances are real, and that sometimes all it takes is one brave soul to break down a door and change a life forever.